The forest stood still. No birds sang. Leaves didn't rustle. A strange hush filled the air. It wasn't peaceful, it felt heavy, like holding your breath too long. The sun, a pale disk, struggled to pierce the thick canopy. Long shadows stretched from the silent trees like grasping fingers. The air grew colder as the sun dipped lower. A path wound through the trees covered in moss and fallen leaves. It was the only sign that anyone had been here before, but it felt forgotten, swallowed by the woods. There was no sound, only silence. A silence that listened.
This is creepy.
Yeah, tell me about it.
Meg, Josh, and Danny, 3 friends from the city, were lost. They had planned a fun day hike, but the trail markers vanished and their confidence faded with the daylight.
Guys, I don't like this quiet. It's too quiet.
Meg shivered. She felt it too. The silence wasn't natural. It was as if the forest itself was holding its breath, watching them. They huddled around their compass. The needle spun wildly, useless.
Great, now what?
We keep going. The trail has to lead somewhere.
They walked in tense silence. Every snapping twig, every rustle of leaves sent shivers down their spines. Then they saw it. 2 points of light, faint and yellow, glowed from the shadows between the trees. They vanished as quickly as they appeared.
Did you see that?
Danny whispered, his voice shaking. Meg and Josh exchanged nervous glances.
See what?
Eyes in the trees.
They strained their eyes, peering into the gathering darkness. There was nothing, but the feeling of being watched clung to them like cobwebs.
A breeze rustled the leaves overhead.
But instead of a normal whooshing sound, they heard something else.
Whispers.
Faint, indistinct voices carried on the wind. They seemed to come from all around, closing in.
What is that?
The whispers grew louder, forming words they couldn't quite make out. But the tone was clear, menacing, hungry. The trees thinned, opening into a small clearing. Moonlight spilled through the branches, illuminating a circle of something. Stones, arranged in a spiral pattern, stood in the center. A low mist clung to the ground, swirling around the stones like phantom dancers. The whispers stopped. The silence returned, heavier and more oppressive than before. We need to get out of here. The figures emerged from the trees.
Tall and skeletal with long-reaching arms.
Their eyes glowed with the same eerie light they had seen before.
The creatures moved with unnatural speed, gliding over the forest floor.
Their whispers became guttural snarls, echoing through the clearing.
Panic surged through Meg, Josh, and Danny.
They turned and ran, crashing through the undergrowth, their fear lending them speed.
But the creatures were faster.
They ran until their lungs burned, branches whipping at their faces.
Meg tripped, falling to the hard ground.
Go without me, she cried, scrambling to her feet.
Josh hesitated, then grabbed Danny's arm, dragging him away.
We'll come back for you, he yelled over his shoulder.
Meg watched them go, their forms disappearing into the darkness.
Then she was alone.
The whispers surrounded her, closing in like a noose.
The creatures stalked closer, their clawed hands reaching for her.
Meg closed her eyes, waiting for the inevitable.
But it never came.
She opened her eyes to see a figure standing between her and the creatures.
A tall, shadowy form, its features obscured by the darkness.
It radiated an aura of power, ancient and wild.
The creatures backed away, their growls turning into whimpers.
They seemed to fear this new arrival.
The figure turned to Meg, its face still hidden.
It reached out a hand.
Meg stared at it, unsure whether to trust this new threat or face the creatures she knew.
Before she could decide, everything went black.
When she woke, the sun was high in the sky.
She was lying on the forest floor, the clearing empty.
The creatures were gone.
The figure was gone.
Only the silence remained.
But now it was different.
No longer menacing, but empty.
The forest had returned to normal.
Or had it?
Meg stumbled out of the clearing, desperate to find her friends, to escape Blackthorn Forest.
But as she walked, she couldn't shake the feeling that something was watching her.
Something ancient and powerful, lurking just beyond the trees.
The silence of Blackthorn Forest held its secrets close.